Hey everybody, welcome back to Electric Cafe. Today is a music review on Dan Curtin's Silicon, the Silicon Dawn. This album is from 1994. I think it's on Peace Frog Records. If you don't know Dan Curtin is an ambient techno producer from UK, and I think he started probably in like 91, 92, and he's still doing music now, 30 so years later. Stuff in the 90s are a little bit more ambient techno, a little bit post-rave, definitely techno, a little bit of acid here and there, a lot of melody. Kind of like Luke Slater's earlier stuff, if you know Seventh Plane. It's kind of that classic Peace Frog sound. Also, it's kind of it's kind of got definitely got a little bit of like a UK version of Detroit techno. A lot of melody going on, a lot of post rave, melodics going on, and still, a little bit of minimalism, but generally it's kind of more in the just coming out of techno, just coming out of rave music, and yeah, that's kind of this is. I'm trying to remember that I believe this is his debut album. He had a few singles before this that made some mark, and then this album came out on Peace Frog out of UK in 1994. So yeah, I do have the. It did. This did get. This did get. This is my original CD copy, which is this is the only run of CDs they had in 1994. But they did reissue it on vinyl in 2018. I think I was trying to look for my vinyl copy. It's still sealed because I played this record, but I couldn't find it. So imagine me holding the record here, but I couldn't find it. But yeah, let's dive straight into the review of this album. There's 9 tracks on this album. The first one's kind of an intro. The last track is kind of an outro. So really, it's a couple songs surrounding 7 songs. Most of the 7 songs are in between 6 minutes and a little bit below 8 for the most part. So this album was probably 7 times 7, 49, probably around 56, 57 minutes total. So it's not a short album. It's not certainly not a long album, but for a techno album, that's pretty standard, especially for the time. Um, so the first track it's just called Intro. Um, Solid Detroit opener, nice sounds. I got 2 stars. It's good. Nothing unique about it or nothing to write home about, but nothing bad. It's solid. Track 2 called Parallel. Uh, Layer of Detroit melodies, the lower of the 2 melodies, and that's the kind of thing. The opportunity I think with Dan Curtin is sometimes his so the thing I don't like, I I don't say I don't like, but I prefer the more lower, the more melancholy melodies. A lot of times there's either a driving chord or a bass line or something that kind of drives it to that kind of full bore Detroit techno kind of sound, and sometimes they can be a little frantic, and Dan Curtin sometimes does that, especially in the early days, and that kind of puts me off a little bit because it sounds a little bit too obvious, and I feel like it's kind of ruining the mood a little bit in it. So I like the lower one on the song, but the higher one is a bit frantic, and maybe the track is a bit fast. But that's not going to hurt the score, of course. It's just 1994. A lot of the techno is faster, and it's something you're. That's just something. It is something that kind of turns off a lot of techno fans nowadays because techno is a lot slower now, and they can't get into a lot of these. And I get it too because when the song is when the song is faster, there's less time to focus in and less time to kind of work inside the groove and bring out the groove and sometimes even have a little bit of funk in there and a little bit of house and a little bit of and I get it. So I can see how a lot of newer techno fans don't like it, but if you've been there from the start and you've been through it, I don't know if it doesn't, I can look past that, but I do feel like this song could be a little bit fast, which I don't say too often. So um, the middle rhythm, the melody is really good. The final melody is the more mysterious one and the better one. It finally comes out towards the ending, and it really kind of ties everything together. I got it really close to very good, 2 and 3/4 stars. Right there, it's really close. The nice thing about this album is that in some ways it does get better in a lot of ways throughout the album. Track three, a flash in the distance. Um, a little bit better beat than the last one. A bit too much going on. The melodies are sort of the calm down part. Um, Nice acid line. The melody kind of comes out when it does kind of calm down. It's nice. Um, I got this one strong. This one's 3 and 3/4 stars. So it's my it's my third favorite on the album actually. Then we got track four called Devotion. Nice melodics, nice deep bass hits, cool rhythm, kind of nice sci-fi, but it really doesn't get to the place that it hints at. It builds up nicely. The first minute or two, I like the way the rhythm comes, but it doesn't really kind of get to that next level. And I got it right under very good at 2 and 3/4 songs. There's actually four out of the 7 tracks on here. I have a 2 and 3/4 song, so right under very good. There's a lot of songs on here that are really close to being very good. Population 2 is my second favorite song on the album. Really nice intro, good balance of the groove, melody, and rhythm. Very well constructed, nice progression. This one, this one gets there. This one's the full track. This one has a complete beginning, middle, and ending, and it's cohesive. I got 3.5 stars, so it's my second favorite. And then it goes right into my favorite song of the album. It tastes like. It's called It Tastes Like. Classic melody. It's The confusion works great here. This one does have sort of a balance of a couple different melodies, but this one works great. The melody that gets added around 4 minutes and 5 seconds is wonderful, magic. The last minute, the last minute could have been a little bit better. I felt like, but overall, I still got it 4 stars. Excellent song, my favorite on the album. And then you come into a couple 2 and 3/4 songs, Outreach and then Thalia Lost. Outreach has a nice rhythm, unique piano, strong bass line. It's another one that doesn't really get to the next level. And then Thalia Lost, solid, a little more jazzy. Nice breakbeat into it midway through. Melody comes in 2/3 of the way in. It's really nice, but again, doesn't really get to where maybe it could have been. I got 2 and 3/4 songs also, 2 and 3/4 stars also. And then the last track, the outro, it's totally different. It's like a downtone, it's kind of urban. It's all right. It's different. I respect that. But it doesn't really go with the rest of the album. The rest of the album is sort of spacey and futuristic techno, and this one's kind of like an urban down tempo, 2.5, 3 minute song. I don't know, but it's good for what it is. It's good. I got 2 stars. It doesn't feel like it works in the song, work in the album. So when I look at the overall good of this album, some really good songs. It's kind of it's kind of a demented take on Detroit techno. There's a few melodies in here, the dystopian kind of things that I was talking about earlier that are a little bit frantic, and sometimes they don't always work that well with the lower melody, and doesn't really have the balance. Um, but in some ways, this has a little bit more personality. I really love the artwork's really cool. Has a lot going on, on each song. A lot of movement in each song. A lot of stuff going on. Sometimes a little bit on a few songs, maybe a little bit too much going on. That's kind of the good, you know. Um, it's kind of a good and bad. A lot of movement's kind of good, but there's a lot going on in some of the songs. Bad or opportunities, I should say. Lacking a little bit of deeper frequencies. It's kind of flat, the dynamics, the bass line, the bass, just, it's kind of lacking a little bit. It's really only 7 songs, but that's just a question mark. It's still around 55, 57 minutes, so it's fine on length. But there is 7 songs on here. When you take out the outros, there's really only 7 songs. So I don't know if that's too short for a techno album for some. If it was on record, it fits perfect. But you know, sometimes seven songs. Sometimes I feel like maybe the techno album should be a little longer, more like 8 or 9, at least 10 songs, or around 10 songs. To some people, this could sound dated. You have to put yourself in the time that it came out, and I think that's really important. And I wanted to say that because if I say go check out Dan Curtin's The Silicon Dawn, and you've never heard this album, and you don't know techno that well, or you do know techno, and you don't know techno from that time, you might think it sounds kind of dated. And you do have to have a lot of experience in techno and be able to a lot of electronic genres just because the technology changes and it's very personable. Electronic music is it's kind of like if you have rock music, right? You go practice or you go play. A lot of times you're playing with other members and stuff, and it becomes a band, right? When you're doing electronic music, 9 times out of 10 you're doing it by yourself, and you're making up everything for the most part by yourself. Especially maybe 8 out of 10 artists are solo, anyways. So it's very personable, very personal music, and because of that, it's very it's very it's I wouldn't say it's one dimensional, but it's one person's, right? It's one person's input. And so in a way it is kind of one dimensional, and I think that's what's important about anybody who's going to critique this stuff or listen to it. They have some sort of experience around that time. Like you can't not have gone through rave music or don't have any experience with rave music and then go try to appreciate rave music. It'll be kind of, if you haven't been to a rave, and I'm talking about a rave before 1996, before, like in the old school illegal warehouse raves where you think it's going to get broken up and yeah, they're unsafe, but there's a feeling of community, and the speakers just got put up and it's raw dude playing vinyl coming in from overseas, and you know what I mean. And there's so many aspects, and there's not air conditioning in there, and you're probably on some alternative substances, and you know what I mean. There's all kinds of things that can kind of get you into that rave kind of spirit. And I guess I don't know if somebody who's like 70 years old, 75 would be like, say the same thing about like something like Woodstock. Well, if you were there, you have to appreciate it. You have to, put yourself in that kind of scene, and of course you can't put yourself in that scene, but can you submerge yourself in that music and really want to get into it and really enjoy it and enjoy what you can and find out what you can, and then you kind of become like an expert, or at least really experienced, and then you go listen to an album like this, and then you have a different respect for it, right? So that's what's kind of really important about putting yourself um, into the time it was made. Like if I just heard this album for the first time and I didn't put it in perspective, I might think this is kind of flat dynamically, sounding kind of dated. I wouldn't really maybe appreciate some of the rhythms and some of the pads and some of the keyboard sounds that were used, and some of the ambient, some of the little critiques, and little kind of little creative things that people do in rhythms and stuff like that. And I definitely wouldn't understand kind of the post rave chill out feel or the rave feel of this, right? Or putting myself in the perspective of somebody hearing this out, right? So there's all those things that you kind of take into account when you're playing electronic music, and I think that's maybe different, but I think people that listen to like maybe punk, like extreme kind of music would kind of understand that if you listen to like punk music or heavy metal or something like that. Like somebody who's not into heavy metal, I would imagine they put on a heavy metal CD and they can't really appreciate on a different level of not experiencing the scene and not having experience with the genre, right? So that's kind of the extreme of it. But even if you like electronic music, you still have to have a pretty good experience of sounds from 1994 to appreciate. But then also, even more importantly, to be able to compare it to what else, and that's the most important thing, is be able to compare it to what else came out then, especially in the pre-internet days, and be able to compare it to something else, right? Because that's what I'm trying to do. And if you're debating on what records to buy and what records to keep and stuff like that, like that's important. Like when you're comparing, like, oh, I'll buy this one. This one's a more timeless record. I feel like this one's going to last longer. And so I try to put all those things into my opinion and my respect for the music and me purchasing a reissue of this, right? So, all those things are kind of part of it. Okay, and then finally, looking at the kind of getting to the point where I give it overall score. When I look at the ratings of the tracks, so I got one track that's above 4 stars. I got two that are 3 stars. Was just two? Wow, just two songs above. And then I got a. I feel like I'm missing one. One, two. Okay, so there's 5 tracks with 2 stars. Excuse me. So 1 star, one track with 4 stars, two above 3 stars, and then there's five that are 2 stars. Yeah, 2 stars and 3 stars, and then um there's none that are. Oh, actually, I'm sorry, there's six that are 5 stars because of the two options. That's right. I'm sorry. So six, six at 2 stars. So a lot of the 2 stars. So most of it is in kind of the good range. When I add up the stars, it's 25.75 divided by 9 tracks. It's almost at a 3. It's almost at very good. There's a lot of high 2 stars in here, so I got 2.86. So if I took that and threw that into the mix, that would probably be around a 60, 68, 69 score. But I rank this one a little bit higher for my memories of it and things like this. And the production and what's going out at the time, and love the artwork, and you know, yeah, I feel like there's some really tracks in here that are really close to 3 stars, and I put them a little bit lower than I might have maybe in some ways, but I've never really graded this album track by track, and I feel like some of these songs can't get to 3 stars, but I do bump it up a couple notches, and I put it into the very good range, where it might have been around 68 in the higher range of good. I put it at 71 out of 100, so on the low side of very good. So, yeah, 71 out of 100. So, solid score. Um, Anything above 70 is really strong. Um, but my album rankings get tough after 70. You know, um, a lot of really good albums are in the 70s. I'm finding this one's on the lower side. Says I think when I pulled out this record, I thought it'd be a little bit higher, but I feel like a few tracks I just couldn't put into very good. And there's 4 of them I got ranked at 2 3/4 stars, so this is right under very good. But 2.86 stars um, per song average is it's really good. It's really good. I mean, anything above a 3 or anything like close to 3 is very strong. And I pushed this one over a little bit into 71 out of 100. But yeah, that's my review. Just curious if you ever heard this album, or do you have a rating of it, or can I urge you to check it out and tell me what you think? See what you think out of it and see what you score it. This is the Silicon Dawn by Dan Curtin from 1994 on Peace Frog Records. All right, thanks so much for listening today.